Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with, excuse me a second, adjust my seat. I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of May 16th to the 22nd, where I take a look at a couple of stories that caught my attention and give you my thoughts and my opinion about them. Before we get started, I do want to talk about one particular game I recently got back into. I'm playing this on the Xbox Series S, and that is Sniper Ghost Warriors 3. When I played that game when it came out in 2017, I liked the idea, but at the time there were a lot of technical issues that kind of held that game back and everything like that, which was really a shame because like I said, I liked some of the ideas and all that stuff. Well, now I've been playing it on my Xbox Series S, and I will say the experience in this one, this time around, is better than it was on the PS4. Of course, there probably were updates. I'm sure there were plenty of updates to fix the game and all that stuff. And I will say, I mean, like I said, it's definitely a better experience. There is one hiccup I have experienced with the game, and that is apparently, at least as far as I'm aware, if the game freezes for a little bit and all that stuff, and that seemed to happen mostly on the tutorial side of things or anything like that. I would have to dig deeper. So I will say my experience with that game in particular definitely has some issues, but definitely a better experience on the Xbox Series S though. Anyway, moving on though, we basically got 4 stories to cover though, including some controversy surrounding the whole Skyward Sword, including the amiibo situation though, some information that has dug up during the Apple and Epic court battle, which involves Game Pass on the Nintendo Switch, Google responds to a situation in regarding Stadia though, and some interesting stuff that we've learned about with Starfield, including from exclusivity to some of the rumors and all. And like I said, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're interested in any of the stories or any of the parts I'm talking about in this video though, I'll have links in the description to where I got some of this information and all that stuff. But before we get started though, we're going to do what I like to call the quick My 2 Cent, and these are stories that sort of caught my attention and all, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details and all that. The first one is a report from CNET that seems to be that Target is taking a different approach when it comes to finding an Xbox Series X and an Xbox Series S. And according to what, if I can find it, according to what CNET is saying, that they've now changed their policy. And the part of it says Target is the latest rollout. Target is the latest to roll out an eternal policy change for selling consoles, moving from slower big batch restocks to making the console available anytime that one is up for sale in your area. This policy change, which was leaked to Twitter's gaming deal expert Wario64 earlier this week, states Target employees have now been notified that starting May 18th, Xbox Series S and X consoles can be purchased online for store pickup as inventory arrives. This means that if an Xbox arrives at your local store, you'll be able to see it right away on the website or the app, and to be able to pick it up later that day, which if that's true and that information holds though, hopefully, I'm say this is good. Hopefully this makes it easier for those who have been trying to find an Xbox Series S and X though, and not have to worry about the whole issues of the scalpers. Time will tell if this new policy works or if this policy is true though. Hopefully this could apply to the PS5 though, as that's been a hard thing to find though. Recently, CEO has apologized for the PS5 nightmare though, and it's unclear if that's going to change anytime soon or anything like that. We also learned that supposedly we have a release date for the PS5 and Xbox Series S and X version of GTA 5. If I'm not mistaken though, if I can find it though, the release date is set for November 11th though. I don't know if there's a smart delivery policy they have or not or anything like that though. And while it's great for those who may have missed out on the game, I can't help but feel that GTA 5 is turning into what we're seeing with Skyrim and even Resident Evil 4 for that matter. It's just like the company's just like milking it to death. Even though I would love to see GTA 5 come to the Nintendo Switch, I can understand some of the criticism at it though. Same with Mario Kart 8 as Deluxe as well. So I mean, great for those who may have missed out on it though, but some people are patiently waiting for GTA 6, and it's unclear when or if that game was going to happen and all that. We also learned that Nintendo has just released a new batch of games for their Switch Online for their NES and Super NES, and based on the batch that they showed, outside of only 2 games I could think of, though, none of them, at least for me, seemed appealing, though. The 2 I could think of are Magic Drop 2, although I think there has been an arcade archive of that game available on the Nintendo eShop, and of course the Super Nintendo version of Joe and Mac. That's a game I remember renting from when it was like available to rent at like my local grocery stores, or even at my local Blockbuster and all that stuff. So it somewhat like the arcade version, not 100% entirely like, not 100% follows it completely or anything like that, but still a good game nevertheless. But I can understand why not everyone is happy with this latest batch of games. I really think Nintendo kind of has to step it up a little bit with the NES and Super NES games. So, but either way, nice to see Joe and Mac basically on the Nintendo's online service, though. We learned that this week, though, that Deep Silver is bringing back Free Radical Designs and is basically looking at possibly bringing back the Time Splitter series, which is really neat because there's a lot of people who enjoy that series, though. I remember playing it on my GameCube, both Time Splitters 2 and Time Splitters Future Perfect or Time Splitters 3, or even their other games, Second Sign, if I'm saying the name correctly, though. Hopefully this means we'll hear something about a Time Splitter game or anything like that. I wouldn't mind if they do a Time Splitter trilogy and bring it to all the consoles, including the Nintendo Switch. If a Time Splitter 4 happens or a Second Sign 2 does happen, my fingers are crossed, and hopefully those games come to the Nintendo Switch as well. Time will ultimately tell, though, but it's nice to see that Free Radical Design is coming back, and hopefully this means we'll see the Time Splitter series make a comeback as well. We also learned that basically a trademark has been filed for The Evil Within, though, and while there's no official confirmation this means that basically an Evil Within 3 is going to happen, though, it's certainly not out of the realm of possibilities in any way, and with Microsoft now owning Bethesda, though, it's possible we could see an Evil Within 3 happen. If it does, I definitely could see it come to Game Pass, and I think it would be a great addition to have to the Xbox Game Pass. So, time will tell whether an Evil Within 3 does happen, but right now the only thing we have at this moment is a trademark, though. We also learned that Codemaster, or at least EA, has basically insisted that it won't turn Codemaster into another Electronic Arts Studios, as we've seen EA has done this in the past. And right now, based on the comments I've read so far, not everyone is buying that argument, and honestly, I don't blame them. EA has a history of buying up studios and pretty much ruining them. Mythic Entertainment is definitely one example of how that studio was ruined to the point when they released Dungeon Keeper Mobile and the backlash that created and all. Visceral Games is another example. We've seen what happened to them, especially after Dead Space 3 and all. So, yeah, I can see why some people are not buying the argument, though. I mean, so far we haven't seen that with Respawn Entertainment, but time will tell if that changes or not. But for now, EA is claiming that they won't turn Codemaster into another Electronic Arts Studios, but the response on the internet has been people have doubts about it, and honestly, I don't blame them in any way. And last but not least, Gaming Bolt put out a video about the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, though, and one of the things I believe that they mentioned was about the frame rate and all, and assuming Gaming Bolt is correct, it seems as though, regardless of which version you pick up, PC, PS4, Xbox One, or the Nintendo Switch version, though, it seems all of them would more than likely are going to run at 60 frames per second, though. Now, granted, the Switch version supposedly is going to be at 720p. Now, I understand that may not be everyone's cup of tea and all, and I don't completely disagree with that, but based on what Gaming Bolt is saying, and assuming everything is correct, if I had to choose between having a higher frame rate or a higher resolution, I'm going to go with the higher frame rate, though. So I'm not losing sleep over the fact that if the game is at 720p at 60 frames per second. I mean, hell, if I remember, Koei Tecmo's Neo game 1 and 2 had a cinematic option or an cinematic mode or action mode. Action mode ran the game at 60 frames per second, but at a lower resolution, while cinematic mode had it at a higher resolution, but a lower frame rate. Same with Fire Emblem Warriors, that also had an action mode or a cinematic mode though. So give or take though, I would take this higher frame rate over the higher resolution. But again, that's my opinion though. Okay, with the quick My 2 cent part now done, we'll get started with the first story, and this one has to do with the situation surrounding Starfield. Now, this was one of the games Bethesda announced that they were working on, though. It was a brand new IP and all that stuff. Of course, this was before Bethesda was purchased by Microsoft last year, though. And since then, there's been questions about its exclusivity or not, whether or not the game will come to the PS5 or any other systems for that matter, though. I mean, after all, we learned that because Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo are contractually obligated, though, Microsoft is going to honor those contracts and release the games on those systems. But now the questions has been about Starfield since then, and there's been some back and forth. Some people claim it's still coming, others don't, though. But however, there are some people who have chimed in on that, and if what they're saying is true, I would say that while I'm somewhat disappointed that it's only going to be on the Xbox system, though, I'm not completely shocked or losing sleep over it, though. In an article posted on Forbes magazine, though, it reads that, quote, Bethesda Starfield is Xbox exclusive if that was still a question. According to the article, it reads, quote, ever since it was announced that Microsoft was buying Bethesda, the fate of the publisher's vast catalogs became unclear. Was Microsoft pulling all Bethesda games off rival platforms, named Sony, in the future, or would still publish these games? The only thing they said was that it would be on a case-by-case basis, but fundamentally, you do not pay $7.5 billion for a publisher and not get big exclusives out of it, though. Industry insider and journalist Jeff Grubb caused a stir last night when he just said what everyone was thinking. He said that he can't confirm that Starfield, Bethesda's next big sci-fi game, will be Xbox exclusive. Though these days, Xbox exclusive mean it will also be available on xCloud gaming and PC. And Xbox exclusive pretty much just means not on PlayStation. Nintendo Switch likely can't run Starfield anyway. Whether that's true or not, that remains to be seen. We've seen impossible games run on the Nintendo Switch, so he could be right. This author could be right, but he could also be wrong, though. Anyway, moving on. The running theory is that Bethesda will make a big splash at Microsoft's E3 show in June, and that it should mark the first true reveal of Starfield and confirm what Grubb is saying here, that it will be Xbox exclusive, though. So basically, while again nothing is officially confirmed, honestly though, I would say I'm not really am surprised by this in any way. After all, one of the big criticisms that Microsoft suffered during the Xbox One era is basically the lack of first-party games, the lack of exclusives, and all that stuff. So it wouldn't shock me at all to hear that Starfield is Xbox exclusive unless there is proof to show that it's contracted obligated like with Deathloop or Ghostwire Tokyo. And right now, nothing has emerged to point to that, though. Now, could technically Microsoft bring it to other systems if they want to? They could. I mean, after all, they have said in the past that they would be looking at bringing the games to Xbox first and all that stuff. So there is always that possibility, but to be realistic, though, I would say that's unlikely to happen. I would not be surprised if we see it pop up on Game Pass or be only way to play this game is on the Xbox system or Game Pass in general. So it wouldn't shock me at all, though. Yes, there is that tiny bit of disappointment that I would have liked to see it appear on the PS5 or even the Nintendo Switch, assuming they could get it to run properly on the Nintendo Switch, but to hear it possibly just being an Xbox exclusive doesn't really shock me. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter how you look at it, though, Microsoft now owns Bethesda, and they're the ones that can make the call on this one, to be exact. Two other things to conclude with Starfield is that Actually, three other things though. One, some of the screenshots has been supposedly leaked online, and assuming these screenshots are accurate though, it does look kind of impressive. The time will tell to see how the game actually plays and runs and all that stuff. So I'm keeping my expectation on this game in check though. I want it to be good, but we've seen cases where a lot of games are overhyped and people treat it like it's the second coming of Jesus, for crying out loud. Excuse me. Destiny is a very good example, though. The other rumor is that apparently there's reports claiming that Tom Cruise is going to star in Starfield and all that stuff, which seems kind of interesting to hear that kind of rumor, though, considering the fact that in the past, whenever Tom Cruise stars in a movie or they use, like the franchise he's in, he doesn't really show up. I think there's some contract issues or anything like that. Like when Minority Report came out, he wasn't in the video game Minority Report. When The Mummy Demastered came out, though, the video game adaptation of the awful 2017 reboot of The Mummy, which ironically the video game was better than the movie, his likeness wasn't used in this game. So it's unclear if this rumor is true or not. I mean, it's possible. I mean, they got Keanu Reeves for Cyberpunk 2077, so it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. And last but not least, though, there is a report coming out that supposedly the game will not be out this year, and supposedly it's aiming for a late 2022, which, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if that's true, though. Would I like it to come out this year? Yes, but it wouldn't surprise me if they push it to a late 2022. And if it can avoid the debacle of the mess that was Fallout 76 and how that turned out, though, then it would probably be well worth the wait, though. But for now, though, we'll have to wait and see. So overall, though, in regards to Starfield, I have to say that, yes, part of me would like it to be on other systems as well, but at the end of the day, no matter what, though, Microsoft now owns Bethesda. So whatever decision they make is their call. And if they decide to make Starfield exclusive only on the Xbox Series S and X or PC or through Game Pass, though, then that's their call, whether folks want to hear that or not. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2, and this one has to do with comments recently made about in regarding the future of Stadia. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be talking about Google Stadia, though. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you have heard the whole situation surrounding Stadia and all that stuff. When it launched in 2019, it was met with mixed receptions, though. A lot of people were not happy with how the service was currently at that stage and all that stuff. And even to the point of lawsuits that basically claim that Google misled consumers about the whole 4K situation, though. And the one bright spot from last year from Stadia, though, was the fact it was the whole situation surrounding Cyberpunk 2077, where apparently out of all the versions at that time when it came out, though, it seems as though Stadia was the only version, besides PC to be exact, but Stadia was the only version where it ran very well and all that stuff. And I've played it on Stadia before, and it is very impressive to see how they were able to get the game running properly and all that stuff. Now, I've tried Stadia. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's terrible, nor do I want it to fail, though. But I will admit that Google made a lot of bad decisions that I think kind of hurt them and all that stuff. And this year has not been as kind to Stadia as it has been. Some of it has recently, we learned how they closed down their first-party studios and all that, which kind of surprised a lot of people and all, even some of the folks who work there, though. To recently, one of the folks recently left and all that stuff. This has led to speculation that Google is planning to kill Stadia and basically put it into what's often referred to as the Google graveyard. However, according to one of the Google's marketing folks, though, they're saying that's not the case. And in an article from Game Industry Biz, apparently they're saying that Google says Stadia is alive and well. Developer marketing lead Nathan Ahearn and two Stadia Maker studios offer insight into the status of the cloud gaming service, though. Developer marketing lead Nate says, quote, we're well on our way to over 100 new games launching on Stadia in 2021, and we're continuing to make Stadia a great place to play games on any devices you already own, he says. I'll tell any non-believer to take notice of how we're continuing to put our words into action as we grow the Stadia Maker program and partner with AAA studios like Capcom, EA, Square Enix, Ubisoft, and others. When pressed for more information, Nate said Google was focused on delivering value for our partners and on behalf of our players. So he points to the release of newer titles on the platform, such as last week Resident Evil Village, the introduction of AAA hit like Resident Evil 7 and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order to the Stadia Pro subscription, and the ongoing additions of new features. The company introduced a search bar to Stadia, although that's been, a lot of people have mocked that due to the fact that it took this long for Google to put that up, though. We pushed for more information about the recent departure, to which a spokesperson replied, reiterated, apologies I'm not saying that name correctly, that when Google announced it was closing its studios, the company said it would find new roles for as much of the SG&E team as possible. As for the six joining Raymond's team, Google was happy they were able to find new opportunities. The production team for Stadia, we're told, is now led by longtime Googler and Stadia founder David Zimmerman. Zimmering, if I'm saying the name correctly. David, DOV, has been instrumental as a senior leader in the production development for both Project Stream and Stadia, the spokesperson added. He will be leading the team towards our goal of creating the best possible platform for gamers and technologies for our partners. Another focus for the remaining Stadia team is the Stadia Makers program, an initiative that offers support on everything from development to marketing support to studios bringing Unity-based titles to the service. The program has already produced 5 indie titles for Stadia, with more than 20 more in development. With no first-party exclusive heading to Stadia, you might expect that the Onus, ONUS, is on indie enrolled in Stadia Makers to deliver titles that help to sell the platform, but AHEARN says that's not the case. We're not shifting pressures onto the independent studios we work within Stadia Maker, he said. The whole point of the program is to support their addition of Stadia as a launch platform for their games, not adding any pressure or make anything harder for them. The two indie studios we spoke to, one's currently working on a new Stadia Maker release, supported this claim. Martin, community manager at SOEDESCO, which recently launched Kaze and the Wild Mask on Stadia, said the closure of the internal studio has not had any impact on the support we receive or our relationship with Stadia, though. So, obviously, according to Google, though, they're saying that, quote, that they're still alive and still doing well and all that stuff, and they are continuing to try to, work to get Stadia through to a lot of folks and all that. But it's not everybody seems to be convinced on that, though. In fact, an article from TechSpot points a completely different story, though. According to them, it mentions what I just talked about, but it adds something. It adds something interesting at the end of their article, which reads that, quote, what's interesting is that Google has never revealed how many people use Stadia. When it closed the game studio earlier this year, unnamed sources claim there were hundreds of thousands of fewer controllers sold and most active users logging on than Google had expected, though. Game streaming service has been around for years without threatening traditional platforms. Google still believes that Stadia needs more time before the technology and audience size make it a valuable option. But despite a global chip shortage that should be pushing hardware-starved gamers to Stadia, it remains the niche alternative. Even Epic CEO Tim Sweeney thinks it's struggling. And in fact, from a Twitter post from ADI Robertson on May 4th, 2021. It looks like this question was asked during the Epic versus Apple comments or lawsuit. It says, one person asked, quote, "Do you know whether or not Google Stadia is in existence today? Judge ordered that this would be confidential info. Lawyer said there's public reporting it was shut down." Sweeney replied, "My understanding is that after a public launch, Google Stadia has been very significantly scaled back." So on one hand, you have Google Stadia and the Stadia marketing team saying Stadia, we're still committed to Stadia and all that. But on the other hand, you have the CEO of Epic Games, makers of the Unreal Engine, though, although Tim Sweeney, some people don't like him, some people agree or disagree with what he says, though, is saying they're being scaled back. So it really puts Stadia in a very awkward spot, and many people still believe that Stadia is going to go the way to the Google graveyard at all. Now, whether that truly happens or not, we'll have to wait and see, though. It'll be interesting to see how 2021 plays out for Google Stadia, though. Again, I don't want Stadia to fail, though. I don't hate cloud gaming. I think the potential is there, especially for those who don't want to spend money on a console and all that stuff. So there's definitely potential in cloud gaming and game streaming and all that stuff. It's just that I just think Google kind of screwed up in the beginning, and that kind of has hurt them so far. Now, could they recover? Yes, it is possible. We've seen recoveries before. Look at Final Fantasy XIV, look at No Man's Sky, for example, or even to some extent, Fallout 76 is apparently doing better now than it was during launch. So it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility, but I also understand why people are still hesitant and thinking that this is probably going to go to the Google graveyard. So time will ultimately tell, though, but for right now, at this moment, Google is saying, nope, Stadia's not dead, but others think differently. So overall, though, I'm going to keep an eye on what the situation with Stadia is going to be. Like I said, I don't want it to fail, though, but it wouldn't surprise me if I see it go into the infamous Google graveyard. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3, and this one has to do with supposedly some information coming out during the Epic versus Apple lawsuit, and this one has to do with the possibility of Game Pass on the Nintendo Switch. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be talking about possibly Game Pass on the Nintendo Switch. Now, this has been a rumor that has been going around for quite some time, and some of this rumor kind of picked up in the way ever since we learned that Cuphead came to the Nintendo Switch, along with Ori and the Will and the Wasp and Ori and the Blind Forest, though. This has led to a question about the partnership Microsoft and Nintendo might have, and there have been rumors going back and forth, ranging from Halo could be coming to the Nintendo Switch to the possibility of Game Pass. Now, the Game Pass part, like I mentioned, has gone back and forth. Microsoft has talked about bringing it to as many devices as possible. Nintendo has made some questions about whether they would allow something like that or not. So, and then we've also heard rumors about possibly a big announcement for this fall in terms of a partnership with, or possibly something with Microsoft and Nintendo. Well, recently, during the whole Epic versus Apple lawsuit, it appears as though some information may have come out in regards of this whole situation with Game Pass. And while it's not an official confirmation that Game Pass could be coming to the Nintendo Switch or anything like that, it sounds like there may be some behind-the-scenes talking going on back there. In several different articles, this one from Game Rant, it reads that, quote, The Epic versus Apple trial has been full of shocking revelation, revealing tons of information about Sony, Xbox, and the rest of the gaming industry. For months now, there have been speculation and rumors surrounding the possibility of Xbox Game Pass joining the Nintendo Switch, but these remain unconfirmed. However, the case of Xbox Game Pass making a jump on the Switch seems somewhat more likely now. The trial revealed some redacted files that contains hints at the potential of Xbox Game Pass going over to the Nintendo Switch. However, nothing of the reveal portion mentions or explicitly, apologize for not saying that name correctly, confirm that the subscription service will make its way onto the Nintendo Switch. Phil Spencer, the executive vice president at Microsoft, had made it clear in the past that he intends on expanding the scope of Xbox Game Pass as well as adding xCloud onto more consoles. Axiom game reporter Stefan reported that documents from the Epic versus Apple trial raised the likelihood that Xbox Game Pass will eventually be available on the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo declared that portion of the position of Vice President of Xbox Business Development, Laura Wright, reflects competitively sensitive information about negotiation between Microsoft and Nintendo. Again, I apologize if I'm not saying some of that stuff correctly, though. Additionally, when responding to a question about those involved in the ongoing discussion, Wright answers primarily the Game Pass content team and other members of the gaming leadership team. Of course, these comments don't confirm that Xbox Game Pass is coming to Nintendo Switch, but the implication can't go unnoticed. Regardless, after the portion of Wright being questioned on why she was involved in bringing xCloud to other devices, the rest of the documents are completely redacted, though. It seems that the censor section of the document shows talks about adding Xbox Game Pass to the Nintendo Switch, but were kept from the public as nothing was made official. Wright was primarily asked about the attempt for Microsoft to bring xCloud onto ISO devices, with the first document showcasing a line of questions about expanding game streaming onto mobile devices, though. While the majority of the content from the document remains unknown, there is a chance that Wright's discussing the partnership between Microsoft and Nintendo. Given that xCloud and Game Pass content team were topic of discussion, it appears that Xbox might partner to get the immediate popular Xbox Game Pass subscription onto the Switch. Regardless, it's no secret that Microsoft intends on expanding Xbox Game Pass beyond Xbox and PC, so the possibility of Nintendo Switch receiving the subscription service wouldn't be too surprising. Nevertheless, this would be a massive opportunity for Xbox Game Pass to boost the already huge number of subscribers, though. So, as of right now, though, it's unclear if these talks are even ongoing or not. I mean, they could be, or they could have broken down, though. But for Nintendo to ask for some of these documents to be censored and all that stuff, I will say it does give the impression, though, that it is possible xCloud could be coming to the Nintendo Switch. Now, there's nothing confirmed. Like I said, there's nothing confirmed that that could happen. It could be that could be the big announcement. It could be something else, like Microsoft might be bringing some of their IPs over to the Nintendo Switch, or this may be a shot in the dark. Nintendo bringing some of their IPs to Game Pass, although, given Nintendo's history, I would say that's unlikely, but I've seen stranger things this generation when it comes of consoles, though. So who knows what it could be, though. If Game Pass were to come to the Nintendo Switch, let's say for argument's sake they said, yes, Game Pass is coming to the Nintendo Switch, same with xCloud, how would that work on the Switch? Well, my guess is that there would be certain games, and I'm sure people have heard this before, that wouldn't be available on xCloud or Game Pass. Like, for example, since Doom and Doom Eternal are on the Nintendo Switch, it's unlikely you'll see the xCloud or Game Pass version of Doom or Doom Eternal. So, obviously, not every game is going to be available on the Switch version of Game Pass, assuming Game Pass does come to the Nintendo Switch. Nevertheless, though, it is very interesting information, and I am very curious to see whether or not this becomes true or anything like that. So, Overall, though, very interesting information revealed during the Apple versus Epic lawsuit, though. But like I said, these talks between Nintendo and Microsoft could be ongoing, or they may just have concluded and we're not going to have anything like this, like Game Pass or anything on the Nintendo Switch at all. So it could go either way. So, but like I said before in the past, time will ultimately tell, and we'll find out in the fall if this so-called big announcement between Nintendo or Microsoft does happen or not. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to our fourth and final part, and this one has to do with supposedly somewhat of a controversy surrounding the upcoming Switch release of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at the situation surrounding The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword that's coming to the Nintendo Switch, and of course the situation in regards to the amiibo that is going to come to it though. Now, Skyward Sword in general, when that was released back on the Nintendo Wii, I believe back in 2011 though, the game definitely the response has been sort of mixed for some people. Some people didn't mind the motion controls and all that though. Others had issues with the game, to be exact, particularly the lower resolution and all, to the frame rate and all. I personally remember playing the game on the Nintendo Wii though, and I did enjoy it though. I thought the motion controls weren't as bad as some people made it sound like it is though. It isn't perfect, but it wasn't as awful as some people made it sound like it is and all. So it's what's very interesting that Nintendo announced this game that will be coming to the Nintendo Switch, and what's even more interesting is to see how this game is going to play on the system though. We do know that the game will be running at 60 frames per second, which is definitely nice, don't have anything wrong with that, but I'm also very curious to see how playing it without the motion controls are going to work. We know that supposedly you can use the right analog stick for swinging your sword and all that, and I'm very, very curious to see how this is all going to play out and all. We've seen some games from the Wii be ported over to the Switch before. Mario Galaxy is one example, as that game was part of the Super Mario 3D All-Stars and all that. It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out though. But the one thing that certainly got people's attention, outside of it being the suggested retail price, is the situation with the amiibo that they announced for Skyward Sword though. Now, just for clarity though, I've collected amiibos though. I have no problem collecting them and anything like that. I'm willing to admit that. I have no issues and all that stuff. But as much as I like collecting amiibos, I won't deny the fact that there are some shares of criticisms about it though. There have been some cases where we have dealt with scalpers with terms of the amiibos, such as I remember hearing one story years ago where one person bought like 100 Rosalina amiibos from a Target, making the claim that he didn't like the design or anything like that, which, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. I mean, we've dealt with it. It was basically, it sounded like this guy was going to do the scalper situation, all that stuff, to supposedly gated content being locked out, as in which you need the amiibo to unlock some of that stuff, though. We've seen cases like this before with games, though. Some cases, though, it isn't as bad, but sometimes I can see why not everyone is happy about it. And apparently, we learned that Nintendo will be releasing a Skyward Sword amiibo and all, but the decision Nintendo has made for it, though, or at least the decision they made right now, doesn't seem to be sitting well with everyone out there. In an article from WCCF Tech, it reads that, quote, "The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD locks one of its best new features behind an amiibo." The article reads that, quote, "One of Link's most underappreciated adventures gets a second shot at glory this summer with the launch of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. As it is often the case, Nintendo is also releasing an amiibo for the game. The statue, featuring Zelda and her Loafwing, is rather lovely, but it's causing some controversy due to how it's used in-game. For those unfamiliar, Skyward Sword is split between two worlds. The open sky, where you can fly around freely with your Loafwing and the more segment dangerous surface world. In the original game, you can only transfer between the two using certain statues, but the Skyward Sword amiibo lets you go from land to sky and back anytime, anywhere, in even the dungeon. That's a pretty huge quality of life improvement, and as of now, it seems to be locked behind an amiibo. An extra expensive amiibo nonetheless, though, it will cost $25 as opposed to the standard $15. So yeah, not great, but hey, for those who just can't resist, they showed the trailer of it and all that stuff down here, though. So, and for those who haven't been keeping up, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD will offer updated visuals, improved motion controls, or the ability to turn them completely off if you prefer, though. They point out the game will run at 60 frames per second, which is definitely nice and all. So, to me, I would say I kind of understand the controversy surrounding this, and in one way, I could see some of the criticism towards Nintendo. To lock a certain feature behind an amiibo, though, yeah, I could see why some people would be upset. It comes off as, this DLC or in-game DLC and all that stuff. It's one thing if you're basically like scanning an amiibo and you'll get like a random item, like we've seen with Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, Age of Calamity, even Breath of the Wild did this, where you scan like up to 5 amiibos a day, you'll get like a random item depending on what amiibo you're using. So it's one thing to do it that way, but to lock out a certain quality of life feature, such as to be able to go back from the sky world to the ground, though, yeah, I can see why not everyone is happy about this, though. Not to mention the fact that they are charging $25 for this one rather than the $15 we get from, the other amiibos and all that stuff. So, yes, I understand the controversy, though. At the same time, though, we've seen controversies like this before in the past, though, and sometimes they don't always pan out as well, or sometimes it feels like the internet is just blowing it way out of proportion, though. I remember when Pokemon Sword and Shield came out, or when that game was going to come out, there were people on the internet who were upset over the whole fact that not every Pokemon will be available, or you can't take the Pokemons you've gotten and put them in the game, too. The visuals saying they don't look good and all that stuff. Yet, despite some of that controversy, though, it wasn't enough to impact basically Pokemon Sword and Shield, as that game sold very well for Nintendo, though. It almost sounds similar to, and some people may or may not agree with me on this one, though, the whole situation surrounding the 2019 release of Captain Marvel, where people were making a big deal about a comment Brie Larson made, to the point that they were pushing, like Fox News' Ben Shapiro pushing the Take the Anita challenge, which, despite all the controversy, despite folks on the internet making it a big deal, it wasn't enough to stop that movie from becoming a success. So the point I'm trying to make is that despite the controversy, I do wonder whether or not this is enough to really have any impact or not. And sometimes these controversies really don't have really any impact at all. I mean, is it possible? Yes, but at the same time, it may not do any kind of impact, like I said, at all, though. And besides, having played Skyward Swords, there are points where you can go back to the sky world and back to the ground, though. These basically the bird statues, though. So even a lot of us were using it even before the amiibos even exist, though. So my overall take on this is that I'm kind of mixed on this, though. I understand the controversy, and I do think there is some level of criticism towards Nintendo to blocking a certain feature like this behind an amiibo. Not to mention the amiibo is expensive, but at the same time, we've seen people take some of these controversy and blow it way out of proportion to the point that basically it didn't really have any impact at all. So time will tell if this controversy gains legs or whether or not it will have any impact on the sales of Skyward Sword. But if I had to take a guess, my guess is most likely the answer is going to be no. I doubt that this controversy is going to have impact on the sales of Skyward Sword or the amiibo. I could be wrong, but that's where I am leaning at this time. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about the situation surrounding Starfield? Do you believe that this is an Xbox exclusive? Do you think that Microsoft is going to keep it an exclusive on their system and on Game Pass and PC? Or do you think there is some sort of possibility, although slimmer of a chance, that we could see it appear on other systems like the PS5 or even the Nintendo Switch, assuming they could get it running properly on the Nintendo Switch and all? What are your thoughts about the comments made by the folks who work at Stadia saying that the system is still alive and well and that it's not going away anytime soon? Do you agree with what they're saying? Do you think Stadia is still going to be around for a while? Or do you believe that it's only a matter of time before Google puts it into the Google graveyard? What are your thoughts about this information coming out about Nintendo and Microsoft talking that could possibly lead to Game Pass coming to the Nintendo Switch? Do you think this is the big announcement we may hear in the fall? Do you think these talks are ongoing, or do you think they have basically these talks are done and we're not going to see Game Pass come to the Nintendo Switch? And finally, what are your thoughts about the whole situation surrounding Skyward Sword, including the amiibo, though? Do you think people are blowing it way out of proportion, or do you think people are right to criticize not only the amiibo costing $25 more than the $15 that other amiibos cost, but to lock out a certain quality of life feature behind an amiibo, though? And do you think this controversy will gain legs and have a negative impact on Skyward Sword, or do you feel this controversy really is not going to have any impact at all? Or do you think some people on the internet are that's blowing it way out of proportion? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to. And excuse me, feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal Me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video, assuming you're watching this on YouTube. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!